What a lot of people do, first of all, I think, is learn a scale and then apply that scale to an entire chord progression. I mean, that's one way to go about it for sure. I think the whole concept of trying to play through the chord changes is maybe a little bit of a better place to start, because then you can actually make the sound of the chord progression as it's going by. So it's just sort of a matter of taking simple chord shapes that you probably already know and picking the notes out one at a time and sort of varying the rhythm, improvising the rhythm. So if you have a C, F, C, G chord progression, then just picking the notes out of those chords one at a time. Something like that. To make it musical, absolutely. Rhythm. You know, it's not just you want to keep that pulse going all of the time. I mean, in what you play. So really, I mean, I'm trying to tap my feet as I'm playing and feel a pulse. So if I have, you know, it's the same thing as if you're strumming. You want to keep that steady pulse going. And it takes a little while, I feel like, to get used to doing it so that you can internalize that pulse and stop playing on every beat. Right, so everything that you're playing locks into that grid work of the pulse of the song and the underlying rhythm that you've got going on for the song. So I would say learning the notes that are in the chord first of all. So first stop is melody, you know, understanding which notes fit the chords as they're going by. And then, you know, a very close second, and some people would even argue that that's the first and foremost thing to do. The second stop is, of course, keeping that steady rhythm going. So when you're using that approach, using the chord tone approach where you're just sticking to chord tones, then the next stop that you can use is, of course, all of the other notes that are in the scale are gonna sound like they're a little bit, like they're clashing a little bit against the chords. So if I have a C chord, but I put a D on top of that, it's not a note that's in the chord, but it's a note that you can use to create a little bit of tension that then you can release by resolving it to a note that is in the chord. So that would be the first stop, would be finding notes that are in the scale but not in the chord. So to do something like that, if I can demonstrate that, would be to maybe take your C arpeggio. So all I'm doing there is I'm going right up the notes of my C scale, playing a note, that D, that's not in the chord but it's in the scale, so it doesn't sound like it's too much of a strain in terms of, you know, getting really out there with the harmony, and then resolving it right back down to that note. So again, I'm just going right up the notes that are in the arpeggio, playing a note that's not in the chord but it's in the scale, and then resolving back down. So I could do that with each of those chords. So that's sort of the first stop. And then the next stop would be finding notes that are not in the scale and not in the chord. And there's sort of, you know, some little devices. I mean, not every single one in this device would fit that criteria, but a lot of them do, is just approaching every single note from a half step below. So again, if I have all of the notes that are in my C triad there, approaching each of those notes from a half step below will give that kind of instant tension and release and tension and release and tension and release and tension and release. So something like that.